Good afternoon. Today we are going to reveal all the truths about the Titanic. We want to give you a new view to the most famous tragedy of the 20th century. So, now we are can help you to make up a whole picture of the Titanic. Just a moment. One moment, please. Okay.
The Titanic was the largest passenger ship in the world at the beginning of the 20th century. This enormous ocean liner was designed by Thomas Andrews and built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast, in what is today Northern Ireland. Construction started in 1909, and the ship was launched in 1911. This pride of the White Star Line entered service in 1912. She was nearly 30 meters wide and 270 meters long, and weighed over 53,000 tons. The steel plates of the external shell were fastened by about 3 million rivets. The power plant of the Titanic consisted of 29 boilers, 2 4-cylinder steam engines, and 1 steam turbine, which drove 3 bronze propellers, 2 3-bladed propellers on each side, and a 4-bladed propeller in the center. The turbines and steam engines had a combined output of 50,000 horsepower and produced a speed of over 22 knots, or 40 kilometers per hour. The enormous hull was divided into several decks. The funnels and the masts holding the wires to the radio telegraph system were above the level of the upper deck. The communication system consisted of 2 individual Marconi radio telegraphs, and the captain's bridge was located in front of the first funnel. The ship carried only 20 lifeboats, 4 of which were collapsible. The 3,500 passengers of the luxury ship were served by a crew of about 900. The ship's maiden voyage was to lead from Southampton, England, through Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, today Cove, Ireland, to New York. However, at 11:40 p.m. on the 14th of April 1912, she hit an iceberg on the Atlantic Ocean, broke in two, and sank 2.5 hours later. The total number of people who lost their lives in the disaster was 1,517, or 1,494 according to certain sources. It is still the subject of much debate who was or were responsible for the loss of the Titanic. The tragedy has inspired numerous books, films, and works of art over the decades since then.
Okay, so now, Vitalia, maybe you know some facts about Titanic.
The most celebrated ocean liner of its time, even before it sailed, Titanic was an incredible feat of engineering and ambition. Its maiden voyage ended in tragedy when it struck an iceberg and sank, killing more than 1,500 passengers and crew. From its construction in Belfast to its dramatic sinking on the discovery of the wreck, it is a story that continues to capture the public imagination.
So the weight of the Titanic was about 53,000 tons. It consisted of 9 docks. There were a lot to do on the dock. For example, swimming pool, gym, Turkish baths, photography darkroom, and 3 cigar rooms.
The luxury steamship Titanic sank in the early hours of 15th of April 1912 off the coast of Newfoundland and the North Atlantic after sidesweeping an iceberg during its maiden voyage. Of the 2,250 passengers and crew on board, more than 1,500 lost their lives in the disaster.
The cheapest ticket cost was $36 and the most expensive ticket cost $4,300.
Now we can see how the boarding pass for the first class looked like, and also we can see the price for the second class. I can see $45. Can you see?
Yeah.
So for today's prices, it's $4,300 will be like 100,000 dollars. So really huge. So,
only 700 people managed to survive. From the first class, approximately 60% of people rescued. From the second class, about 42% survived. From the third class, less than 25%. And of crew, it was nearly 23% of people.
So we know from the film Titanic that some crew, they played music while sinking because they just, why do you think so? Is it normal, or maybe it was like desperately no? What do you think about it?
I think it was like they didn't want people to know that there is a problem when they are sinking, so they continued playing as if everything was okay.
So yes, like they want to
Prevent from panic, maybe.
Yes.
Oh, maybe, yes, it's also good. So now let's imagine that two survivors come to our class and they want to share their opinion, they want to share their feelings of that awful night. So please tell us about your experience and your attitude.
Now I want to introduce you our today's guests. It's Violet Jessup and Eve Hart, who survived in Titanic tragedy. So first I want to talk to you, Eve. I know that you were 7 years old when you faced with the Titanic crash. So firstly, tell us something about yourself and why have you decided to take a voyage on Titanic?
So I was born on the 31st of January 1905 in London. My father was Benjamin Hart and my mother was Ethel Bloomfield. So in early 1912 my father decided to take us and immigrate to Winnipeg, Manitoba, where he planned to open his own store.
And what was your first impression of this ship?
I remember I was 7 years old when we boarded the Titanic as second-class passengers on the 10th of April 1912 at Southampton, England. I remember I was 7 years old and I had never seen a ship before. It looked really big. Everybody was very excited about it. We went down to our cabin and that's when my mother said to my father that she had made up her mind quite firmly that she would not go to bed at night. She would sit up at night. She decided that she wouldn't go to bed and she didn't.
Do you remember some details about that night? What did you do? How did you feel?
So I remember that I was sleeping when the Titanic struck the iceberg. My father rushed into our cabin to alert my mom and me, and after wrapping, I was carried to the boat's deck. Then my father placed us in the lifeboat number 14 and told me to hold Mama's hand and be a good girl. It was the last time I would ever see my father.
I'm so sorry about that. Thank you very much for the interview. That was Eve Hart. And here we see her photo when she was small and like a recent one.
So for nowadays, Eve Hart, she died in 2012 at the age of 104 years. So incredible life, of course tragic. Okay, so the next one will be another person who survived in this tragedy.
So now I will talk to you, Violet. I know that some people call you the unsinkable because you faced with 3 ship crashes. So that's quite an unbelievable fact. So for now, tell me something about yourself, and then we'll start something else.
Well, I was born and raised in Argentina, and I was the oldest child of Irish immigrants. But when my father died, my family decided to move back to England, and then my mother suddenly became ill, so I left school and decided to become a stewardess. First I worked for the Royal Mail Line, but then I was employed by White Star.
Tell me about your first accident. It was Olympic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was walking aboard the Olympic when it crashed with another ship in 1911. The event was jarring, but no one was seriously injured or killed in that accident.
And how did you turn out to be on Titanic?
Well, a year after, I was asked whether I would like to begin serving on Titanic. At first, I wasn't quite sure about it, but a lot of my friends said that it would be a wonderful experience for me, so I changed my mind and accepted that suggestion.
Can you recall some details about the night of accident?
Yeah, I wasn't quite asleep when Titanic hit the iceberg, so I remember everything clearly. Later on, after the hit, I was ordered up on deck with some other stewardesses. Currently, a lot of passengers were standing all over the board, and some time after, a ship's officer ordered us on board number 6, first to show some women that it was safe, and after 8 hours, I became one of the small percentage of Titanic passengers and crew who was rescued by Carpathia.
Okay, so how had your life changed after the Titanic tragedy happened?
Even after the sinking of the Titanic, I continued to work for White Line and even to serve as nurse on the Britannica ship. In November in 1916, Britannica suddenly sank in the Aegean Sea, but luckily I was again among the rescued. And after 32 years on the sea, I returned to England and lived in a small cottage in Suffolk.
So that was Violet Jessup. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you so much, our survivors. You were awesome. Okay, so now we can see the titles of the magazines, of the newspapers, that the more than 1,500 lives lost when the Titanic sinks after striking iceberg. So all newspapers all over the world, they just wanted to know more facts, maybe more details. However, even right now, we have many facts that cannot be revealed whether it's true or maybe it's false. Who was blamed for the who was guilty for this? Thank you. So now we have a title. I just want you to think a bit, to discuss, maybe to give your opinion. Could Titanic survive? Do you have any maybe suggestions, or maybe you heard some information about it? It will be interesting to hear.
Well, I know that a lot of people they didn't know safety rules. They didn't know how to evacuate, right? So a lot of people they didn't know the rules, so they died because of it.
And also panic.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madina. Yes, because it was in 1912, don't forget. It's the beginning of the 20th century. No GPS, no navigation, and of course, it was not safety at all to sail and to have such cruise. Okay, maybe somebody else?
So I also know that it was better for the Titanic to hit the iceberg with its bow, so with its front part of the ship, because they would have time just for other ship to help them.
You know, I think that Titanic actually had 10 chances to survive, just because I heard that the crew made a lot of mistakes which were very critical. For example, when Titanic hit the iceberg, captain decided that they will continue sailing, and that was wrong decision, because if they started, if they stopped sailing, they would have a chance not to sink.
Yes, because as far as I remember, 7 tons of water every second.
Yeah.
So it's just was filled up in the 9 decks. There were 9 decks, yes, we know, and 6 of decks were filled with water. That's why about 4 hours, Carpathia, it's the other ship that rescued some people, it needed 4 hours. Just 7 ships wanted to help Titanic. However, as Victoria said, they moved, and that's why they had no chance to survive. Only lifeboats. And also, as for me, you know that lifeboats were given for the first class, for women, and for children. Yes. And first lifeboats, they were not filled just completely as much as they could. Sorry. Okay, and also you can see. Just one moment. I want to show you the key. Yeah, that will be great. So this key was sold at the auction for $70,000 in 2007. So the sinking of Titanic is a set of circumstances that lead to the tragedy. Yes, of course. As Victoria said, there were many mistakes of crew. Some mistakes because of people couldn't. They crashed in the panic and they couldn't just calm themselves and do in a proper way. You can see this key that could save all the passengers. The first mate of the captain, David Blair, at the last moment was substituted with another first mate, Henry Tingle Wilde. Henry had more experience because with such ships he was also first mate at the Olympic. Yes, also not so fortunate, but unfortunately David Blair forgot to give this key from the safe where the binoculars was. It was 1912. There were no locators and binocular was very important in navigation. Team could notice iceberg in time with the binoculars. Don't forget that it was night, Atlantic Ocean, foggy, and they saw only just a small piece of iceberg, but they couldn't even imagine how big it's underwater. This iceberg was formed like 2,000 years ago, so it's huge. Okay. And also, now we can see that about 100 years later, we can see the image of Titanic, both of them. They are resting, sorry. Titanic found his resting place at 2.3 miles below the ocean surface in Canada, near Newfoundland. Really, people had to sail only 3 days, and they would be in New York. However, unfortunately, so the tragedy has happened. Okay. Also, just now, thank you all. Thank you for attention. And now we will make a short quiz. Of course, we know so much information about. We have much information about Titanic, so let's answer a quiz. We can do it 2 times, and just to know our knowledge. So, with us, Captain Smith, we can see him, one of the bravest captains, I think so. So, quiz: where was the Titanic built?
Belfast City.
Belfast. Do you remember the company?
White Star Line.
Yes, White Star Line. Belfast? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, Captain Smith agrees. Okay, the next one. At the bottom of which ocean are the wrecks of the Titanic still lying?
Atlantic Ocean.
Atlantic Ocean, of course. Yes. Good. In which year did the disaster of the Titanic take place?
1912.
1912. Yes. Of course. The next one. How many funnels did the Titanic have?
4.
4. But
Three of them worked.
acted. Yes. Do you know what was in the first funnel?
It's like place where pets.
Yes. How many people were aboard of the Titanic at the time of the catastrophe?
Approximately 3,500. No, only 2,000.
Okay, it's just different. Well done. Okay, Mr. Smith, we will try again. Some sources say that 2,200, but some of them I just noticed the 3,000. Okay, maybe they wanted not without crew,
Yeah.
because 900 of crew were. Okay, let's try again. How many people were aboard at the time of the catastrophe? 2,200. Okay, we just agree with Mr. Smith, but okay. Which company owned the Titanic?
White Star Line.
Do you notice that Titanic, Britannica, Olympic, all of them were from the Star Line, and all of them sank. I think they don't have to just to build ships anymore. Okay, how many passengers could the Titanic carry? Oh, 3,500. Oh, it means that the Titanic wasn't full of passengers. What was not part of the Titanic's deck?
Cinema.
Yes, cinema. There was no cinema as far as seen. Swimming pool, cigar rooms, yes.
Photography dark room. Even.
Yeah, even, yes. It's like selfie, yeah? Just made it, and after that, make a photo. How many people survived the catastrophe?
Approximately 700.
700. Yes. Excellent. Try one more time, the last one. Okay, and we will finish our lesson. So, which ship was not the sister ship of the Titanic?
Lusitania.
Was only Olympic and Britannic. Lusitania was not. Thanks God. Okay. Sorry. Is it true that there was no crow's nest on the Titanic?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. No.
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 So this fact, sorry, we didn't hear about it. Okay, we will know. We are studying, so some mistakes can be. Which ship was the first to hear the distress signal of Titanic? Carpathia, and it rescued some people. Which part of the deck was nearest to the bow of the ship? Maybe. How do you think? Maybe stern deck. Maybe. Let's try. Officer's quarter. Sorry. We will investigate it one more time. What was the surname of the Titanic's captain? Smith. He is with us. Yes, we are right. Practice more. Okay, we will. Thank you. Okay, just a moment. Oh, sorry. One moment, please. Okay, so thank you for attention. Thank you so much for our survivors. Thank you for lesson. Thank you for you that you were so patient and just devote us your attention and your ears. Okay, thank you so much and have a nice day.